What's up, guys? Dr. Ricky here. Match day was a couple of days ago, and that's when the medical students find out if they're going to residency and if they do match somewhere, where they're going. So I want to tell you guys a story that's going to illustrate some incoming advice for all of you new residents who are starting out that I think is really important. I trained in general surgery in Chicago, inner city, knife and gun club. It was crazy. And as general surgery residents, we were really called upon quite often to put in central lines, which are big IVs that go into the vein underneath the collarbone or in the neck to get central access to give medications and fluids. Now, I got called to put in a central line once, and I went and put in that line. And at that time in residency, there were no work hour restrictions, and we were working 24 on, 24 off shifts, so we were really tired. I put in a central line one day, and pretty standardly after you put in a central line, you've got to get a chest x-ray. You want to check that the line is in place in the superior vena cava, that you didn't puncture a lung or collapse a lung during the placement process. So at the end of a long shift, I put in a central line, and I checked out to one of my co-residents the x-ray to check for me because I was exhausted and I wanted to go home. So I get home, and I get a call from my chief resident, and he says, "Ricky, did you check that x-ray for your patient? They have a collapsed lung." And I was like, "What? No, there's no way they have a collapsed lung." He goes, "You need to get back to the hospital." So I jump in the car and I'm racing back to the hospital, totally stressed out because I knew that I placed a clean line. There was no struggle. I'd put so many lines in before that I knew there wasn't going to be a problem and that my buddy was going to be checking that x-ray. So I get back to the hospital and I run up to radiology and I pull the film and I put it up and I look at it, and the line is in perfect position and there are no collapsed lungs. And so in comes my chief resident behind me, and he looks at me and he says, "Don't ever leave the hospital again without checking your patient's x-ray." So here's the teaching point. Something that I feel is getting lost in medicine today in residency because some of the work hour restrictions have played into this, but in general, I think people just don't have the same ownership of patients that we did. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't develop the ownership, but the point here for you moving forward into residency is the following. Take full ownership of your patients. You should do everything you can when a patient is assigned to you in residency to know everything about that patient and take care of that patient with everything that you have. Now, of course, there are chief residents and there are attendings who have the ultimate responsibility for that patient. But something that I want to really impress upon all of you incoming residents is you need to take